We almost did. It's the problem of women between the ages of 55 and 65 who've been divorced or widowed, many of whom don't even know how to get a job, let alone keep one. Social Security hasn't kicked in yet, and they're too proud to ask their kids for help. We found several of them wandering around, of all places, the Los Angeles suburb of Bel-Air. Well, not exactly wandering around, as you'll see. Polly sleeps on the streets of Los Angeles. So does Jenny. They are the stereotypical homeless women. But only a few miles away, along the opulent streets of Bel-Air and the other wealthy suburbs of Los Angeles, this woman is homeless. This woman is homeless. This woman sleeps in her car.
And you're not a bag lady.
No.
But you're afraid of that?
Well, I mean,
Or ashamed of that?
That's the stereotype, you know, that look, the bag lady, or pushing a cart. And yet at the same time, I'm not any different. You know, we're both homeless. I create my little womb in my car, and I turn on my television for a couple of hours, and I get, you know, 7 hours of sleep. I'm very aware that even if I sleep through the night, it's not quality sleep.
Because you're always worried?
There's always a part of me on guard, right?
Conservatives are firmly in control.
There are days when I'm feeling really bad and I don't put any makeup on, and it's amazing the negative response you kind of get from people. I'm very sensitive to my homeless situation right now, extremely.
The Bel-Air homeless used to live in their own nice houses on some of the very streets where they now park their cars. They're ashamed of their destitution, of how far they've fallen, and so they try to conceal it. If you saw these women in the daytime, you would never guess. Look at Barbara, and Josephine, and Susan. Susan used to live in this house. Divorced in 1970, she raised 4 daughters alone without child support. She was earning about $100,000 a year as a movie production accountant in Hollywood.
All right.
Today, she sleeps in her car with her dog Peaches and her cat Fred.
Come on, sweetheart.
How did this happen?
I don't know. I think I went into burnout with my work. It was just absolute, complete burnout.
After her last child left home, Susan got depressed, lost her job, and last January she was evicted. Too proud to ask her children for help, she sold off almost everything except her car.
You see this window, Peach? Huh?
How do you sleep in this car? It's so small, and you have so much in it. You and the dog and the cat all sleep
Right.
in. What do you keep in here?
I've got my dog food back there, cat food. That big box is cat litter. Or, yeah.
Tell us for 5 years where you've lived.
In the car.
Emily, a former ballet dancer, was divorced after 13 years of marriage. She's been a secretary trainee, but is currently unemployed.
I'm older now. I'm not what they call FOA, front office appearance. Took me a long time to find out what that meant.
FOA, right.
FOA, very important.
Emily says she was unaware until recently that there were any other women like her living in their cars.
I've learned a lot of techniques about making it look as though the car may be full of stuff, but that a person isn't in there. And I hunker down when I go to sleep, and I cover myself with, like, newspapers so that nobody knows that there's a person in there. And
Aren't you scared?
Yes. Oh, yes. Every time I would go to do laundry in a public place where other people who were living normal lives, it's so humiliating, it's so embarrassing to take my car that I'm living in and park it next to people who aren't living in their cars, who live in homes, that I was so self-conscious all the time. You don't have social contacts with people like a normal person because you know you're not a normal person anymore. You're off on the edge somewhere.
Marjorie Bard, once homeless herself, wrote a book called Shadow Women. She's an expert in Emily's lifestyle and tells her how to make a car a home and where to park it at night.
You can hang
Terrific. Oh, great.
You want privacy. You want trees, preferably, so you can use it as a bathroom area in the middle of the night or early in the morning. So you would head for a place that was completely private,
Like
with
what?
trees in Bel-Air or
Bel-Air?
Pacific Palisades.
Bel-Air
where the richest people
That's
in the
right.
country live,
Where Ronald Reagan lives.
Yes. You park on their street
Yes.
and use their bushes.
That's right. They live almost the way they did before, except they're sleeping in their cars, but nobody else knows that. In fact, I know 2 women who are living in movie stars on their estates, and these movie stars do not know that the women are there, sort of by tennis courts or pools that are in the way back covered by bushes. They're certainly not going to go to a shelter. What does that offer them? A bed in a dormitory with a bunch of women that they couldn't stand to be with socially before or after.
The homeless of Bel-Air would rather go without food than be fed in a shelter like this one. While there are those who live from shelter to shelter, these women live literally from gas tank to gas tank.
I mean, I never would have bought this car if I thought I was buying a vehicle to sleep in. I never would have bought this car. It's too tiny. It's got windows all the way around. I mean, it doesn't serve the purpose that well, but it did.
Josephine is a painter. She got divorced after 13 years of marriage. She stayed with friends for 6 years before moving into her car.
What about the first night you slept in this car? You had no place to go. You had no home.
The first night that it rained that I slept in the car was even more of a unbelievable experience because there was nowhere to go. I mean, there I was in my car hearing the rain like on a tin roof, hearing the rain all around me and feeling as though, feeling completely isolated. And that is the most terrifying part of it, is the feeling of isolation. It's just unbelievable.
Today, Josephine is a housekeeper. After months in her car, her back in pain, she did something she thought she'd never do. She took a job cleaning and cooking for an elderly couple.
I had a very comfortable life. I lived in Malibu and had an, I would say at least upper middle class life.
Now tell me what you went through to take a job as a housekeeper when you had one yourself. Your ego, your
I
mind.
went through about 4 days of walking around trying it on, wondering, just trying it on in my mind, could I do this? And then I thought, of course I can do this.
How many Josephines and Emilys and Susans are there? Homeless organizations can't provide accurate numbers because these women are trying to hide the fact. Of all the homeless women we met, nobody was trying to hide it more than Barbara. She puts up the best front. She looks like $1 million in her old clothes, the antipathy of a homeless person. She's not out on the street, not living in her car, at least not permanently, but she doesn't have a home either.
You and your husband were members of the Bel-Air Country Club.
Mm-hmm. That was my tennis
Which
grounds.
is one of the most prestigious in the country.
Indeed. With good reason, and I loved it.
And then what happened?
Well, things change.
You got divorced?
Unexpectedly.
Barbara and her husband had rented rather than own their home, so she was left without property. She got alimony, but under California law for just half the length of the marriage, so the check stopped coming after 4 years. She tried to get a job as a governess, but was turned down, and now she's homeless.
And beautiful marble.
Determined to hang on to as much of Bel-Air as she can, Barbara house sits or stays with friends in the area. She has moved more than 25 times in the last 2 years.
Do you have money for clothes and hair?
No. We don't pay for those things. We don't buy those things. We don't go shopping.
So what do you do now? Look at your
Well,
hair. You look beautiful.
And I think when you put yourself together as you know how, then you have your best foot forward and you can face your day more confidently.
From time to time, Barbara goes to a department store and puts on the free samples at the makeup counter.
Gasoline is the challenge.
So you do have a car.
Yeah, as long as you can maintain it. I mean, the insurance is critical.
Do you have
et
insurance
cetera.
on your car?
I do this month, and it's a challenge every month.
How much money do you live on a week?
It has gone from variable highs to lows of a very challenging $5 a week.
Barbara won't take a job she considers beneath her. She cares deeply about appearances, about maintaining the illusion of her past life. Then what is she doing on this broadcast? She told us she's hoping someone will see her on 60 Minutes and offer her a job as a television interviewer. Susan doesn't go to the makeup counter at the local department store. Every morning she goes to the local laundromat to wash and change her clothes in the bathroom there. She pays 25 cents to get in. She chose this bathroom because when you turn the water on, it stays on. In other bathrooms, the taps spurt water and then shut off. But what happens when the food gets shut off?
You learn to be smart. You can go from place to place in a public situation like this where there are stalls, and you can ask for samples. You can say, may I taste that first? I'm not sure I really like that.
Oh, would you sample ice cream?
Yes. And by the time you've hit 10 places, you've sort of had a very small meal.
Pistachio. Oh, yes, could I try the pistachio?
Well, you see the tables that we're sitting at. There is no busboy to come immediately to clean it off. Consequently, people will stand off to the side, and they will watch to see who, particularly with children, are going to be getting up and leaving food.
You eat the leftovers?
Yes, people do. And they're pretty careful about it. They'll look to see what's been chewed upon and just been left.
Is it easier for a woman?
It's much easier for a woman. Think about it. A woman's natural milieu is to be around the environment during the day. But if a man does this, unshaven, hair not neatly trimmed, rumpled clothing, they don't wear washable silk. What is he doing in the middle of the day, wandering the neighborhood? Obviously, he's a bum, she's a lady.
Most of them are divorced. In their 50s, they're too old for entry-level jobs, too young for Social Security.
In your mind, is almost any woman in this country at risk?
Oh, Leslie, yes. That's the scary part. When I talk to people, they say, I'm 2 paychecks away from being out of their home. And my thought would be to stimulate their thinking. The ones that are married, stay married. The ones who are not married, you watch that job and you're being punctual and you're whatever it takes to hold the job and be profitable with it.
Do you see the end?
Not right now, no, I don't.
Do you think this could go on and on and on like this?
I can't even look, you know, that far in the future. I mean, right now, and the way I'm coping is one day at a time. That's how I'm dealing with it. Hi, kids, I'm home.